Well, hey there, it's Rotten. So before I start this video, I just want to ask you some existential questions. To give you an idea, like questions that you unknowingly are asking yourself every day, yet you aren't able to formulate it in concrete words or phrase it as a definitive sentence. Questions such as, is it truly sinful to judge a book by its cover? Is it truly very naive or immature to have your own perspective against the vast ocean of unidirectional mindset? Should or would an extreme mesmerizing art cover up an anime or manga's well thought out or badly written story, among other facets? If the inevitable is known, does that make the story bland or uninteresting? Does the one standing on the opposite end of the hero need to be always a villain? Could there be struggles in life of one if it isn't overcoming physical hurdles? Should struggles to improve be the only basis of the progress of the story? Although these questions might not be as deep as you all expected, but if you came up with your answers, I will give you a manga to read for you to verify it all. And that very manga is One Punch Man. To be honest, I'm always skeptical of very highly rated manga because those ratings aren't provided by actual critics but the normal readers. And as such, the ones with the most appeal or popularity tends to be the only manga read by them. And so to maintain the trend to feel included in the manga sphere, and since those very manga gets brought up to them pretty much every time by other readers, it automatically sets off as a GOAT manga. It's not that those manga aren't awesome, but unfortunately they aren't great most of the time, or in other words, there are many other mangas that are better than them. I won't name anything now because I'm afraid I won't be able to back my words with counter example. So let's just move ahead, but keep in mind I would reiterate this discussion in some other video. So now that you know probably a little about me, let's get back to One Punch Man. During this last few months in terms of reading manga, things haven't gone so well with me, as you might know if you have been following my channel. So as I mentioned before, I was very doubtful about One Punch Man, whether it would turn out as another disappointment as well. But first I need to mention that 3 years ago I watched season 1 of One Punch Man, and frankly it seemed very average to me. But as soon as season 2 dropped few months later, and supposedly of it not being able to meet the standards set by the prequel, I saw many of the audience shift their focus towards the manga, and that's what ultimately led me to read the manga instead of watching the sequel. But I always had the notion of the later part of the manga having the same quality of average surface level storytelling as it was in the first half of it. But even then, I had the urge to get caught up to it in the hope of being proven wrong and discovering a great manga in the process. And to tell you, I couldn't have made a more good decision. Now, I hope I don't need to go over the plot, but if you haven't watched or read it, the synopsis from my animalist would be in the description. And I hope many of you who are watching this video did have at least some prior exposure to One Punch Man. So let's move with the actual discussion. As I was reading the manga, a sudden thought struck me. You know, this genre of superpowered hero versus almighty villain has been the basic foundation of many flourishing companies such as Marvel and DC, the comic giants. And there in Japan, the weekly Shonen Jump basically followed the same theme in every title. But they never seemed to have the idea of an invincible, undisputed hero, or even if they did, they didn't quite conceive the way on how to present this unique character in a relatable scenario, or how they would be able to build a story around it, since for most of the time, the hero's journey is what mattered the most. I know some of you are getting reminded of Kenshiro, but even he got overpowered by many villains. He had his struggles to overcome both physically and emotionally. But what if there's a perfect being, a godly hero who basically is the peak of everything, of every feats of strength and power? What if he wasn't someone relatable, yet the most human character in his universe? And that's what One Punch Man takes into account and addresses pretty well. In many cases, having a one-shot protagonist would prove out to be a predicament in the progress of a story. But somehow One Punch Man does pull it out, and it does leave me quite fascinated. Maybe it's because how Saitama is as a character, a casual, relaxed and a laid-back good guy, so there is more to look at him as a normal human being rather than a thriving hero. In contrast to Saitama is the antagonist Garo, a character who goes through a journey familiar to that of a normal hero in other anime or manga, but the twist lies in the fact that he is a villain in the story. The reason why I said that the season 1 of One Punch Man didn't appeal to me was because it hadn't quite established the roles precisely and seemed nothing more than a surface level story till the end. But come season 2 or the later part of the manga, the gears started rolling. Things started to make more sense for both Saitama and Garo. The anticipation for the climax is more vibrant than ever in the recent chapters of the manga. The mangaka One Sensei did take it slow and built layers of story using other characters and other scenarios and exploring more characteristics of both Saitama and Garo, but keeping the character foundation intact. I never hoped I would read something like this. Well, you can blame me for not being able to sense the thematic structure of One Punch Man before, but after getting caught up to Land of the Lustrous and finding out that I was right about the story being mediocre all along, I guess you should take note of that as well. Well, I thought to structure this video's content in the form of my normal manga reviews, but I think having a normal discussion gives me more room to discuss this already popular manga. Now, of course, discussing One Punch Man and not giving much time to the art would be very strange. So I already said in my last climate video about how the art impacts storytelling to many levels, and One Punch Man couldn't prove out to be any more appropriate to own my words. Well, let me get this out first. I'm not a fond of action sequence in manga because I feel it works well in anime only, and so it doesn't matter how good the art is, it still can't capture the fluid movements of an action sequence that's necessary to form a concrete feel of why it matters. But even then, I've got to say, One Punch Man does try. Like in chapter 36, in the fight between Saitama and Boros, there's a series of manga spreads only dedicated to little changes in the fights. But even then, it can't quite capture the thrill of watching it play out, and that's right there a plus point for anime. Apart from this apparent downside, not many manga can come close to this artistic gem that Murata Sensei nourished. The art is impeccable, and it has set a gold standard of portrayal of environment through just its art. Murata Sensei has taken the digital art to the extreme. Yes, there is Innocent, there is Inuyashiki, yet One Punch Man does inculcate such color tones that you can't do anything other than praising it. And then there's Fubuki. No words other than simply perfect. Yeah, she is actually. Look, her character was something that I needed to experience by myself after watching many panels with her in every major platform. And yes, she does have the charm and redeeming qualities, I can say you that. Although One Punch Man is a seinen manga, but the feeling of gore and blood wasn't very vibrant until the last 10 chapters. Just needed to mention that. Now, what more to say? Well, you all can comment what you liked or didn't like about this manga, and was it a satisfying read? I definitely am looking forward to hear you all's views. But till then, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and also subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss out the next manga content. And with that said, read One Punch Man if you haven't, and I hope the season 3, whenever it gets aired, does capture the thrill of this manga quite like it did with season 1. And so with that all said, zup!